I mean, I was telling Pete, I was telling Tommy, I'm going to see it. I just read it on CNN, so I'm going to see if Michael knows. And then Pete goes, I don't know, he might know what the government said. I thought, no, I'm more interested in seeing the excuse he makes off the top of his head.
Because if your second derivative is then you have a concave up. Yeah. With concave up.
Yeah.
Of the gradient.
You start on 500.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to Weather Watch. I'm just going to start off with a very brief recap of our snow event. I guess you could call it snowstorm. We can use the word blizzard. From early this week. Yeah, the loop, but starting on Friday of last week, just to get some context, we can go back. So if you recall, Weather Watch on Friday, as John was going over the analyses, the super peats from 500 millibars, we had this fairly, relatively straight flow on west-northwesterly flow across western part of North America, and we had noted a trough that was just off the coast of the west coast of British Columbia and Washington coast, and that was sort of the, in my view, one of the main players for this particular event. Just for some, starting from the end and kind of working backwards, one of the key things, as people do with edge joints, one of the key things that I want to mention was I think the last couple of comments that we had in the conversation at the end of Weather Watch really played out. So I think Madison received somewhere between 8 and 9 inches of snow officially, I believe. And most of that fell, obviously, right after 7, 8 p.m. on Sunday evening. And so I think the timing that we had described really held out pretty well. One of the things that John had noted was sort of the things to look at during the day, particularly in the afternoon, watch what's happening there. And we did have some pauses in precipitation, but I think the precipitation, once it started in the late morning, early afternoon, was more or less continuous for most of the day. There was a bit of a break, but I think it's that persistent precipitation that occurred when we were anticipating temperatures getting into the upper 40s, maybe close to 50 degrees, when we only stayed in, no warmer than maybe the mid-30s. I think evaporative cooling and that persistent precipitation, a northerly wind, and sort of advecting drier air in from the north, I think that kept us cold. So that was one aspect I think checked off that gave us those grand totals when we were thinking about would we get anything. The second piece was just watching to our southwest the development of sort of a cloud head that was going to be developing and the precipitation beneath it, that if we didn't see that happening, that might indicate that this system was going to miss us just to the east. And sure enough, around late afternoon, you could begin to see the organization. We'll see that in the satellite imagery that Pete's generously put together for us. That sort of held in place. So let's first just look at the 500 millibar level, the progression of this particular system, this trough that was off the west coast, as it moves inland and begins to amplify. So we can just step forward, please, Pete. There it is, just approaching the west coast, and this was Saturday afternoon. One of the things that was interesting, we can stop right here, was after the forecast on Friday, I'm looking at some of the new model guidance that was coming in, and was kind of thinking, did I go too far? Did I say too much? Things looked a little bit better for the snowfall, but I think there was some wavering in the model solutions after then. From totals going as low as maybe 3 inches for the event, up to still some of those really high levels. And so I was a little bit nervous, but I was sort of confident that we at least outlined the things to look for pretty well. And I think some of the resolution in the forecast in terms of things becoming a little bit more greater certainty of what was going to evolve really occurred once this trough feature actually crossed over the coast and was in the radiosonde network such that it is. It was resolved maybe a little bit better with some in situ observations. So let's continue going forward. That's Saturday at 12Z. Okay. Then we're going to Saturday evening. It was interesting during this time.
It's Saturday.
That's Saturday morning, right?
It's early Sunday.
Right. This is now Saturday evening.
Right.
And so one of the things that actually started was on Saturday was there was actually some light precipitation that began to break out well to our west. I'm trying to get the timing right, so my apologies on this. I think we did have some light snow on Sunday.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. That was to our south.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than light around here, around 2 p.m., which I think
Right.
meant it was coming early.
Right. So we had some snow on Saturday afternoon, on and off, and then we'll just keep going forward. Watch this upper trough. I mean, the temperature advections in terms of looking for sort of the deepening of this trough, it wasn't particularly strong. There is some geostrophic cold advection, I guess, over parts of southwestern Montana at this time period, and certainly over most of Montana at this point. So maybe indicating that this has the potential to amplify somewhat. And now we can really begin to see some very serious amplification potential for this trough as it's actually amplifying. You can see it. This is 12Z Sunday, so this is Sunday morning, just as the event was beginning to sort of unfold for us. And go ahead another look in time. And clearly a really nice, well-developed trough, even with a slight sort of negative tilt associated with it. And this is sort of priming the pump for a really deepening storm. This is Sunday evening at this point. And this was around the time that sort of the cloud head began developing just downstream of the trough axis over parts of eastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri, and in parts of Illinois. And by this time it was pretty clear, the model forecast, certainly by Sunday afternoon prior to this, but 6 hours prior to this, were all sort of indicating sort of a blockbuster storm. And blizzard warnings had been hoisted for most of parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even southeastern Wisconsin that became under a blizzard warning once it became pretty clear that this was going to really amplify and give us a period of snowfall.
Yeah, throughout the whole evolution, sorry, Mike, really good discussion. This upper trough that gets on the Missouri-Kansas border is really potent, but there's no downstream ridge. This is this broad kind of flat ridge.
Yeah.
And so that was well forecasted all along, because sometimes I just couldn't believe we're gonna get 40 inches of snow without the thing stalling out someplace, but it never really did.
Right, it was just intense snowfall.
Yeah, yep.
Right, but yeah, the lack of a really well-developed downstream ridge. Let's go ahead another 12 hours just to see this. Begin to see one near the end. And so
Yeah.
the cyclone actually, I think, as it was evolving, and the surface track of the cyclone actually did stall for a bit as the upper trough was developing, and then it began, these two sort of came together and this began to continue on. And maybe it was slowed down a little bit by this small ridge that finally gets created, but it was, by this time, it was too far to the north for us.
And it's like the heating was
hold it
the
in.
only thing doing the lifting to build the ridge. It wasn't, nothing else was cooperating, and that just was difficult to do in this really, strongly deformative flow across North America.
Yeah, so this is, so this cyclone begins to move off. I mean, this is 12Z on Monday, where you had the lingering snow over us in the morning. The blizzard warnings were all the way through 4 p.m., but I guess it was by mid to late morning, it was pretty clear that the snow was over for us. Eastern counties of Wisconsin were still getting some snow. Again, totals down here for the event. Again, most of that occurring on Sunday evening into Monday morning, 8 to 9 inches. But parts well to our northeast, there are a few local spots, I guess, that did get 40 inches over a 2-day period.
Yeah.
And Green Bay and some other places nearby were in the middle to upper 20-inch range, and that set some records for some of those locations. So a really impressive storm. I haven't looked at 850, but I just want to look at that.
Can I just say
Yeah,
one last
please.
thing? I'll bet, but I don't know, that Kansas City and Monette have close to or set their all-time minimum temperatures for March 16th at 500 kilovolts. Right there, minus 36. That's really cold. And I don't know if that's right, but this was a flood of really the last piece of really cold air over North America that got dissipated at low latitude, and it's gone now.
We
It
hope.
was in the wake of this. Yeah. Well, we can't make it anymore. We know that. We can't make it anymore.
Can't make it, but yeah.
And you can't even fake it.
You can't fake it, you can't make it. Yeah.
Now we're at the equinox. You can't even fake it anymore.
Okay, let's go to 850 hectopascal and just look at I think that's the lowest level we have. I didn't do 850 because it can get messy at 925. And I want to just go to Saturday afternoon and then go forward from there.
Evening or morning?
Saturday afternoon. I mean, Saturday morning, sorry. Right, and so at this point, the warm advection was already beginning to spread into regions to our southwest, neutral temperature advection at this point, this geostrophic temperature advection. Here's where the warm advection was, and the band of snow had already started across the Dakotas into Minnesota and parts of Iowa. And you can see sort of the localized maximum warm advection, so that burst of snow that we had into briefly on Saturday. Let's go ahead another step. And then we begin to get this really strong warm advection to our south. This is Saturday evening. This is not really the storm. Again, we're always talking about the storm being more on Sunday evening. One step ahead again. And the front just climbing ever so to the north. So here it's what, 13 degrees Celsius in central, so 56 in central Illinois, and that's 10, that's 5. Yeah, we got just above freezing in Madison at this point, but one of the interesting things was at the surface, we were just at freezing or below. And this really kept that, the ice, freezing rain situation really kept going for us in the southern part of the state. But even further to the north of us, there was a bit of freezing rain as well.
It's a frontal collapse in that 12 hours, from 0C Sunday to 12C Sunday.
In terms of tightening of the...
Yeah, all along the length of it, from, you know, Lake Huron all the way back down to the Panhandle of Oklahoma. That whole thing tightened up in that 12-hour period.
Yes, we can go back and forth just between those two.
Look at that. It's just remarkable. And we had periods of hail.
Right.
I've never seen that before. We had periods
So
of hail.
how do we just, in a situation like that, I was curious, how do you distinguish that grapple or hail from just regular ice pellets?
I guess I don't know that, but they were slightly bigger than ice pellets.
By definition, hail is when it's at least 5 millimeters across. Grapple is anything smaller than 5.
Okay.
So that was all wrong.
But then,
I'm not
sure size hail.
You measured hail? Okay.
okay.
It was pretty amazing.
One of the other aspects of that, we were talking about this, maybe the slowed progression of the front. This is at 850. Could we go to 925 briefly at 12Z on Sunday?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is the 0 degree contour at 925. So you can see that 0 degree contour was at least at our latitude, if not a little bit further to the north. So it was warmer aloft than closer down to the surface, right? And one of the things was with that tightening of the gradient, that's going to also be associated with a transverse circulation, with the cold side sinking and that air heading southward. And I think that's what helped slow the progression of the front and keep the cold air in addition to the evaporative cooling that was perhaps also taking place at the same time. So, strengthening fronts, warm fronts can certainly be slow movers. And that might have been part of what helped us out with that. Let's go ahead, actually, at 925, the next hour. And there's that cyclone really beginning to take off as it moves into just south of Chicago at 925. And then one more time period into Monday morning as it moves into Michigan. And you can sort of see this baggy trough with a broader area of maximum cyclonic vorticity just over western parts of Michigan as this maybe slowed up just a little bit before it moved out of our area. So, nice development. Let's just look at this from the perspective first of the satellite imagery and then look at the radar.
And
we'll look at the
unit
IR.
structure in this thing. It never could do it.
Didn't do it, so.
And it was not forecasted. It's just what sometimes it's
What do you look at
it's
first?
forecasted.
Yeah. What? Let's look at the IR loop first, please.
Midwest or CONUS?
We'll do CONUS. Just look at the progression of it. Because it's really impressive as that trough finally moves on shore and then begins to deepen. We'll watch that. So watching time and to do this Saturday, yeah, it's now Saturday morning. Here's the trough. Begin to see sort of the organal extent of it beginning to amplify. We're now into early or late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. As these clouds begin to raise ahead. And let's stop it at around 18Z or so. Okay, so we're kind of waiting for the real event. We had some thunderstorms Sunday morning. The hail, ice pellets falling, freezing rain. You can see really, these convective looking turrets that are forming to our southwest. So we had pulses of that going through during most of the day on Sunday morning into early afternoon. Let's keep going and just really slowly, we get to maybe 22Z or so on this. So as I'm looking at this, if I were looking at this, I was telling John if this were 20, 30 years ago, and I'm looking at this and looking at surface maps and things of that sort, as I see this band of heavier precipitation and higher cloud tops moving, beginning to move to our east, I'd be kind of wondering, scratching my head, well, is that it? Is that the end of it? Look at the radar imagery as well, and you kind of, begin to kind of wonder that. But knowing better now, and having greater faith in some of the numerical forecast guidance, It's like, no fear, this is gonna happen.
Yeah, and the crescent-shaped cloud over the Mississippi along the border of Illinois and Missouri is a bit of a key there, isn't it? It's not linear there. There's a little bit of departure from linearity, and that's like, that's where the things really start putting itself together.
Right.
Now,
So let's go ahead, just keep clicking ahead.
Yeah. See,
Now you can see a cloud head beginning to form.
Yeah.
And then it's really this piece back here
Yeah.
that really, and you can see even the sort of wave-like structure forming gravity waves with the snowfall. And also even a pivot of the band, because one of the things was when we looked at the radar, it looked like, oh, this is lifting northward as we expected, but it's going to pass us too soon.
Yeah.
And then the whole band just pivoted in the radar. We'll see that in a second. It goes over us. And then some significant convection to the south. But I haven't really focused on this, but I imagine some of the forecasts for a significant outbreak of severe weather along the East Coast from DC south and southwestward didn't really come together for this particular event. And so now we're into Monday, the storm is over at this point. Okay, let's go to the radar, please, Pete, just for brevity. But thanks for putting these loops together. I don't know if this is linked right. People want to look at this later.
I'll go to the code.
Next rate composite. Okay, so west, so we're looking at now Sunday morning. We had a little bit of snow then. Then shifted to the north, kind of as we expected it would in some of the model forecast. And then the more convective precipitation early on Saturday.
That's gonna be Sunday.
Sunday, I meant, but it's going to be fast. And then here's the band of precipitation coming in. Heavy snow and then just snow showers after that. We can go back to Sunday, again, also around maybe 22. Guess we really can't control that. Great. This is Saturday evening. The convection comes in on the morning on Sunday, and then we can stop it and just advance it slowly. So this is sort of the main band of precipitation, and you look at that even in the early afternoon thinking, well, are we really close to being done? You see some snow out here, but it's not too exciting. But then as we get later to the afternoon, you begin to see, again, to our southwest, this area of precipitation beginning to emerge and spread northward, beginning to sort of fill in behind it, which I think is sort of the beginning of that precipitation shield that arrived on Sunday afternoon, or Sunday evening, after about 7 o'clock, we began to get into this. And then again, looking at the southern edge of this, you think, oh, that's going to advance pretty quickly by us, but the band kind of pivots a little bit and keeps us in this long axis for a great period of time. Just maybe missed some of those really more generous snowfall amounts to our northeast, because the band set up just to the east of us.
Not exactly the right longitude this time.
Right, but we got some snow, which was fun. Bring it on, I say, bring on even more. But in any case, the impact of that snow with the heavier amounts to the north of us and then back over southern Wisconsin, that we've begun to lose a lot of that snow cover, that will have an impact. We'll see when we look at the forecast. One that's really wet ground, deeper snow or lessening snow cover to the north is going to have an impact on our forecast for the weekend and how warm we might get otherwise if we didn't have the snowfall. Anyway, thanks Pete for those, and I'll turn it to John for the, oh, there's a question.
I had a couple questions about the forecast leading up to the event. The GFS was much stronger with the cyclone for several days in advance than the Euro and the NAM. And I was going on a deep dive on why that could be the case, and I noticed that over the Pacific, the GFS had the jet streaks just being stronger than the Euro did, at 250 or 200 or 300. And that seemed to tie into stronger cyclones. But then on the model runs, maybe it was Saturday night or Sunday morning, all of a sudden the GFS made a significant shift south and weaker, which makes me think that it got some observations that showed that its going thought of stronger upper level winds is maybe not quite accurate. I don't
That's
know
a
what
possibility. I would invite you to, if you have some of those maps and if you've saved them somewhere,
I did not see that.
bring it to Weather Watch. It would be
Yeah.
interesting to have a discussion on that.
Okay.
I haven't looked at that, so I really couldn't comment on that directly.
Yeah, me either. Except I would say this, that a shear line can be consequential for development, but it can also kind of squash development in ways that are kind of interesting. You have to have a sort of isotropic vorticity feature to really hit the thing
to have a concentrated region of ascent and therefore saprogenesis, it seems to me. And so sometimes a strong shear line won't assist you in doing that. Okay, thank you, Michael. Great overview, and thanks, Pete, for saving all that stuff. As usual, we have a really great opportunity to talk about these things in this department. It's been a rich history, I hope it continues. Here's our current satellite movie from just hours into the spring in the Northern Hemisphere. You can almost see the sun is right there, right? There it is.
Yeah.
And that's Bogota is about at the equator, so it's just about right on top of that. I didn't bring it to this discussion today, but I brought it to my class. I got a fence that's facing west in my backyard. It's 86 inches tall. And then 81 inches from the base of the fence yesterday was the edge of the snow line. And the tangent of that angle, 81 over 86, is 43.2, and our latitude's 43.07. So you can do that when you're at the equinox, because you don't have to add or subtract the latitude of where the sun is. So I always look at that, and luckily we had snow to do it 2 years in a row, as it turns out. And the observations were mimicked in those years, as it turns out, too. Okay, so here's our cloud mass associated with the event that's now in the southern part of the Labrador Sea. And we can see clouds stretching all the way from the Caribbean up to the southern part of the Labrador Sea. Rudra Thacker's got some things to tell you about this. Cold air outbreaks over the Labrador Sea. He's not here, is he? All right, I'm just giving you a little highlight. Cold air outbreaks over the Labrador Sea account for 60%-ish of the water mass transformation that drives the thermohaline circulation. That's coming out. That's huge. Yeah, that's an enormous new insight about what's going on here to drive the North Atlantic deep water formation. Very exciting. And he's an expert in manipulating these climate models, so he's got a really nice story to tell you. Beautiful weather over the eastern, well, almost the entire continental United States. You can see the only place where it isn't the case is over New York State and parts of northern and northwestern New England. And that is, we'll see when we look at the radar, it's precipitating that. Everywhere else, really, really nice across the whole 48 states. We still have this band of snow from just south of Minneapolis up to Green Bay, where Preston spent the weekend and came back as excited. I mean, he's an excitable guy, as you probably know, but I've never seen him more excited than I did on Monday morning. That was pretty exciting. And it, 28, what was it, Preston, 28.7?
4 hours of thunder snow on Sunday.
And what was the 11-hour duration? It was something else.
In Wausau, they had 11-hour blizzard conditions.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I know you mentioned, I couldn't remember it. So it was just wild across the middle of our state. The governor responded appropriately, state of emergency. I never thought on Monday morning, with forecasts on the phone and then looking at gridded analyses, that we were going to talk about 60 or 70 degrees by Saturday. I thought it was ridiculous, poppycock. And as the week went by, it got more and more likely that it might actually be true. One of the keys, perhaps in retrospect, might be that the fact that the snow was melting overnight and therefore percolating into the ground as well. The ground had been kind of pre-warmed before this event, and a lot of people were thinking that might cut down on the accumulations. It didn't really do that here in Dane County. But it probably means the ground was more ready for the liquid that would result from the melting. So the ground was gradually, water was seeping into the ground continuously, 24 hours a day, melting after the thing stopped. And that's probably also true to the north of us, except we'll see when we look at the surface temperatures. The presence of the snow still there has kind of depressed those temperatures compared to ours, at least early in the day. I mean, they're kind of catching up now. So an interesting weekend on hand in regards to high temperatures.
Yeah, I also want to mention something that we didn't talk about on Friday because the focus was real on the snowstorm, was there were already indications late last week of a building true heat wave across the southwestern part of the U.S. with temperatures, I think, in Phoenix, I don't know if it's already reached that, but this weekend and maybe in early next week, getting into the low 100s,
Yeah.
100, 107
It's going to be
in that
brutal.
range.
Tyler.
I think I heard something today that a place near Phoenix hit the all-time March temperature record for the U.S. of
Yeah.
110.
Wow. Unreal. And I don't have, sort of a photographic memory that could allow me to say that on prior March 20th, I've never seen so little snow cover on the Rockies in the false image. But I think that's largely the case. The same with Sierra, even though they've had a good amount of precipitation in parts of Central California with a variety of different disturbances over the last, well, really 2 months. But this is really bad news. Imperial Valley is bad news. There's no water in the Sierra, but it's a little less extreme there than it is here. This whole Colorado River is going to be well below normal all summer long. And there's no way now that you're going to make it up, because as Michael was saying and we're talking about, this is going to be the focus, maybe a part of the forecast discussion of the current weather. What's going on in the Southwest? extraordinary right now.
I can only speak for Colorado in February, but this past February was Colorado's second driest February on record.
Yeah, that's bad news. And now it's warm, so whatever was accumulated is going to disappear too quick to really be stored the way that we have traditionally enjoyed. So lots of interesting little things going on across the continent in the face of all of that. So,
John, there was
yeah.
an email that came through from Dave Blanchard on the MAP mailing list today. Flagstaff, yesterday, hit 84 degrees Fahrenheit for the third daily record in a row. Also set the March record for the third time in 3 days. The record of 84 degrees in March exceeds anything recorded for April, where the record is currently 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And the earliest 84 degrees recorded before yesterday was May 2nd.
Wow. That's Flagstaff,
Gives you an
at
idea.
elevation, they're a
Yes.
mile above sea level.
Yes.
Or approximately, it's amazing, okay, unbelievable. So this is really wild. So what we'll do is try and examine, as best we can, lower tropospheric temperatures. I was talking to Brad Maxwell today down at San Diego, because he's interested in this thing and trying to categorize and see how rare it is and various other ways of doing it. And he was thinking maybe we'll look at 25 degrees C at 850. And in San Diego, that's above the surface. And they actually had that in their 12Z off yesterday, right? Or maybe it was last night. 25 degrees C, never had happened before at 850. But more appropriate for the whole region might be the same potential temperature, but a different level, 9 degrees C at 700 millibars. It's the same 312 Kelvin. So that might be a little bit less contaminated. But that might be a thing to look at. How much aerial extent is there of 312 Kelvin air at 700 millibars? It's probably unprecedented, because this is widespread. And so we'll talk about elements of that as we go through the discussion. Okay, thanks, Pete. Can we look at the West Coast satellite image? Because there's interesting things there, too, that have a bearing on, maybe not on our weather, but a bearing on understanding the atmosphere. Widespread open cellular convection over the entire Northeast Pacific. We'll see why in just a minute. You can almost get a hint of it right here. This is just in the infrared. Probably just temperature of the air at the level that it's being most strongly sensed by the satellite. But you can see flow coming through the gaps between the Aleutian chain is really kind of part of the cold air flowing out over the ocean that's forming some of these open cellular convective cells, and then some of them actually can organize a little bit. We saw earlier this week, there's a beautiful example of that, sort of a polar low with spiral rain bands and all of that in the face of, sorry?
Snow bands.
Snow bands, yeah, and that's right, snow bands. And it's all in the face of this continuous cold air depletion in the western part of the Alaska Bering Sea region out over the Pacific. And then contrast that with the clearness of the cloud depiction off the west coast where the air is not that cold. So we'll take a look at what's going on here. I presume the surface water temperature is 5 to 6 degrees C or something like that over that part of the Pacific. So it'll be fun to see what's the 500 millibar temperature there and draw some conclusions about what's driving some of these open cellular convective elements in that location. Here's the state of Hawaii that's finally emerging from really a 10-day long period of excessive rain. And that was last weekend. We had this cutoff that was not only well forecasted, but sitting exactly in one spot for a period of days. And that's finally relenting over the islands. But only in the last day or two, I think that's the case. So Oahu has had some unbelievable rain totals and a lot of property damage and various other displacements as a result of really excessive rains over our 50th state over the last couple of weeks. Looking further to the west, there was a better looking cyclone at about the date line or a little west of the date line maybe 2 days ago, but it's kind of broken up into these decaying systems, and there isn't much organization to that all the way back almost to the coast of Asia. So the Pacific is kind of entering a period short, maybe lived, but a period where there isn't too much activity. One thing, though, that's dominating the last 2 weeks at least of the weather is this big ridge over the west coast. That's kind of solidified this so-called heat dome. I hate the term, but it's not a bad term. It's going to be hot, and it is sort of a dome, and that's the anticyclone.
Just look at it in the IR, look how dark.
Yeah, it gets really dark over parts of Arizona and New Mexico. Just incredible. Yeah, unbelievable. So we'll take a look at some temperatures at 500 and 850 and some other levels and see what's going on there. So that's the broad picture. Can we go to the, well, we'll take a look at the national radar, I guess, because we haven't done that. Surface map. Sorry? Surface map. And surface maps, yeah, we got to do that. So here's the surface, the radar composite, and here's the precipitation along the eastern Great Lakes through most of New York State, parts of Pennsylvania. Some of it's convective. You get a few places where the reflectivity's in the 50s, much of it in the 40s, But it's probably a pretty good rain. We'll see when we look at the surface ops. I would guess moderate rains in a lot of locations along the lakes. And that is about it until one gets to the Puget Sound, where it's precipitating as well, and even down as far south as Portland, the site of another early exit to the NCAA tournament for our fabulous Badgers. So, and I mean that. I mean, I have great respect for all the work they put in, and I feel bad for them when they don't have that win in the first weekend, and they came close, but I don't know, it just didn't work out. Okay, let's take a look at the surface ops speed. Let's start in our own region, because there's some interest there, for sure. And it's not as interesting now as it was, but I guess it's a little bit interesting. 58 and mostly cirrus cloudiness around us, and 52 and crystal clear in Green Bay. So, and 51 further to the west. So temperatures around 50 in the region where the snow is on the ground, and approaching or exceeding 60 just a few tens of miles to the south. The difference was more exaggerated earlier in the day. In fact, can we go to an earlier map? Maybe we'll go to, not 12Z, but maybe 15Z or
Can we
14Z.
do the zoom in of just the state, maybe, just to get a better?
Oh, yeah, okay, we can do that. So maybe -5 hours in Wisconsin or something like that. This is pretty telling, right? We've got 50 degrees, this is at 12Z, 50 degrees here at home, 35 in Green Bay, 29 further up the coast in the peninsula, and then all 30s pretty much where the snow is on the ground, so, and all clear. So you just have this really great radiated blanket down there, and we don't have it as much as we used to over here, and that made a big difference. So 50s all the way to the coast, and then 30. So temperature differences of 15-ish degrees to start the day have decreased to, what is it now, maybe 6? Something like that. So that's actually still an interesting story. So what does that mean? The snow doesn't have the same ability to cool you down when there's bright sunshine or something? I mean, I don't understand.
I'm wondering also if we go
Open
back to
spaces.
the current map, the same time, or same map,
Yeah.
actually, but current time. If you look just south of us.
Yeah.
Right? So 58, now we get into the low to mid-60s.
Yeah.
And there was less snowfall down there. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
wondering
right.
if you have less precip down there, there's still a little bit of snow cover here.
Yeah,
If you
and
look
water
at
on the
it,
ground.
And water on the ground. And that's playing a role. You know, the solar energy is not just heating the ground directly, it has to first do some, and do the evaporation of
Yeah,
the water vapor,
yeah,
or melt
yeah.
the snow the further north you go. So,
Yeah, so you have more jobs to do here than you do here than you do here.
Yeah.
That's a good point, yeah. Tyler?
It's also northwesterly surface flow, and so the air is coming from the snow towards us, which I
Ah.
can imagine would help.
Yeah, I guess you're right, except that a trajectory straight to the northwest gets you in the Minneapolis suburbs, which are similarly in the mid-50s. And I don't know if there's as much snow over here, so maybe we're coming over some of the snowpack, undoubtedly, that's a good point. But there's not as much snow to the west. The good thing it's not northerly flow, it'd be worse. That's a good point.
You can see the snow on the day cloud phase satellite image too.
Oh, yeah.
Melting away, yeah.
So, pretty nice day for us, 58 degrees at noontime on the 20th of March. If you complain about that, then you're a sad, kind of upset person, right? I mean, that's not such a thing that you should complain about, probably. Okay, right, first day of spring. You know, the old adage is the first day of spring is one thing, the first spring day is another. This is both. So, okay, let's take a look at the broader continent again, and we'll go to the current time. Yeah, over here where it's raining. So a couple of places with moderate rain. Some in Canada, freezing rain just north of Lake Ontario in southern Ontario. It's the only place I think that it's frozen until you get up into northern New York State and southern Quebec, southern Ontario, light snow. A couple of places moderate snow near Syracuse, moderate snow near Burlington. So pretty good event up there. And then some places with moderate rain around Lake Ontario. And that's about it precipitation-wise in that region. Broadly, temperatures are in the mid-70s to mid-60s from the mid-Atlantic down to southern Georgia. That's pretty nice weather, and the dew points are low, 70 over 37. Atlanta, 71 over 40. You can't beat that. Not many days like that, right, Grant? No. You don't get a whole bunch of these. How about this one at Wilmington? 66 over 37. You almost never... 66 dew point at Wilmington happens like 300 times a year or something. So to have a dew point in the 30s is pretty nice.
And then in the southwest.
Yeah, then we gotta go to the southwest. So we're a little bit early in the day still, not peak sun time yet, but let's just scroll up a little bit. Let's get some temperatures here. I forget where all the cities are. Santa Fe, I think, is there, right? 77 over 16. Albuquerque is somewhere else, and they're going to be in the mid to high 80s over the weekend. Is that Albuquerque? I think it might be, right? So 69 over 21. So dry. It's a dry heat.
Yeah, that's right.
86 degrees over parts of the Permian Basin. 91 over 25 down here north of Del Rio. And then Dallas is 73. Where's Dallas right there? 76. And then the mid 70s around Houston's at 78. So pretty nice. But miserable in Southern California.
It's a dry
and,
heat.
and western Arizona, the Gadsden purchase area of the U.S. 90 degrees. I don't know what the station is there. It's somewhere at the southern end of the valley. Sorry? It might be, yeah, it's Bakersfield. Then this is Death Valley or somewhere close to it, right? 88, 91. We're in the 70s on the coast, and similarly near 90 in the southwestern part of Arizona. So really, really hot, and probably going to get worse. Then elevation starts to play games with some of the temperatures. 75 in Boulder, but 53 like Durango, some a little bit higher. Let's take a look now at some upper level charts. Let's start at 500 millibars.
There was a comment that came in online talking about the cold, lack of cold air in North America. They say they'd suggest to look at Alaska, because Fairbanks is running more than 20 degrees below normal for the month, and the 500 millibar temps are below minus 40 Celsius.
Yeah, we're going to get there because I wanted to talk about the open cellular convection.
We're going where? Super
Upper level charts. Let's start at 500. So here's the 500 millibar map, the eponymous super peak, 12Z this morning. And so let's go right out to Alaska. Remember we said that widespread region of open cellular convection in the satellite image over the whole region south of the Aleutians and then off the British Columbia and Alaskan coast. Look at these temperatures. Minus 45 near Anchorage. Minus 43 at Fairbanks at 500. So this isotherm right here is the minus 40 isotherm. And the ocean temperature can't be colder than like 5 degrees C. So you got 45 degree temperature difference over 5 kilometers, because this is 4992 for geopotential height. So that's a lapse rate of 9 degrees per kilometer. So it's not absolutely unstable, but it's well into the moist unstable range. You have a saturated air parcel, which presumably is not hard to do over the vast Pacific Ocean. When you somehow get that to rise, you're going to be running 2, maybe even 3 degrees of temperature excess every kilometer of ascent. So that's a lot of buoyancy, a lot of positive area in your soundings. Unsurprisingly, you're seeing a lot of widespread open cellular convection. In fact, right where it's coldest, it organizes most easily because that's even more unstable, and the columns can get stretched more vigorously. And the boundary of it is pretty much this baroclinic zone. When you get south of it, of course, the air is suddenly 16, minus 18 degrees, and that's not anywhere near as lapse rate there is like 5 degrees. It's pretty much absolutely stable. So this is where the instability is just by the lapse rate, and you can see it reflected in the clouds. Here's the geopotential height maxima over our completely unobserved southwest United States, which is a disgrace of national proportions. But 5939 is what the analysis says. We're just shy of 6,000 meters for 500 millibars. This is something we kind of look at with curiosity and root for it a little bit if you're weird like me in this regard. Like from June 15th to August 1st. This is not something you expect on the day of the equinox. This is way out of line, and we're not observing, which is just a disaster. Thank God our numerical forecast superstructure is good enough to give us a reasonable proxy for these observations in the analyses, but I'd sure like to have the actual observations in a case like this. Greg?
This was kind of a question I had about the event last week is, how many more observations would we have needed, say Wednesday of last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to really dial in the event? Because there was such a wide range of solutions.
That's a good question. The origin of that event was unfortunately in a spot that's kind of traditionally not going to benefit from any observations. I don't know if people are running companion experiments, and if they even could, I guess you could, data denial experiments to just see how sensitive are the places we're not observing in terms of 4 and a 5 day forecast or something in certain locations. I would imagine forecasts of weather on the East Coast might be very sensitive to missing these observations. Forecasts in the central plains of the United States might be less so because they're so proximate. And then, of course, it matters which day and on which of these sounding stations somebody decides to save the money for Elon Musk. Well, that's what it is. And that's exactly what it is. There's nothing else more to it than that. And he's not even in favor anymore. So, I don't know the answer to your question, but it's a great question.
Yeah, I think, the obs over North America that are missing, it's unclear to me, but it's, I haven't done the study and maybe others have, as John was indicating. I don't know how critical those were on Wednesday.
Right.
But certainly over the Pacific, we often use the term, and I kind of suggested it, wait until the wave, crossed the west coast of the United States. We do have satellite ops there, and we do have aircraft observations that are still there. And so to say that it's totally undersampled isn't fair.
Yeah.
I don't know if the winter storm reconnaissance program that the NOAA runs did any flights through that could have helped inform what's going on in the Midwest. I kind of doubt it because of the time of year and being to think about spring and all that, but certainly having more obs in the northern Pacific, even with what we have satellite aircraft, would have probably reduced some of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
I think there's no question about that. But for this particular event, on Wednesday or Thursday of last week, it's not clear where to take those, but they're tools that people can use to sort of assess how sensitive the forecast was to the analysis.
Yeah, and along the lines of the winter observations reconnaissance, part of that is the atmospheric river reconnaissance. They weren't doing any of that this week.
Right.
There's no particular reason to do that, as you can see. So, but that's a fabulous. We do have OBS in Mexico. We have some OBS in southern part of Arizona that say 5940. So we're close to 6,000, and same with that valley, San Diego. We have some observations that really point us in that direction of nearly 6,000 geopotential height meters above sea level for 500 kilometers in southwest Arizona at the peak of the war there.
So
Unbelievable.
I'm curious, with all the extreme warmth, how deep is the mixed layer over the southwest?
Okay, let's take a look at what is this sounding. This is not Phoenix. What is it in far southwest Arizona?
Is it Tucson?
Or can we go to the sounding maps and just get it?
From like tropical? Or
Or how about we have some.
yeah, you're right.
Oh, Tucson, you're right.
That's unfortunate.
Wyoming, you go to Wyoming. Yeah, let's do that one, see if it comes up.
I'm also going to be getting one from 0Z.
Is that, see, that's at 12.
But just see this is
Riverton, Wyoming.
So I didn't give me Riverton, Wyoming.
Is that station number update? No.
Do you know that?
How do you know what the
There's
station
the
number is?
legacy link.
Oh, wait a minute. I think there's no observation there.
That's way back.
The only reason I'm suggesting the 0Z is to really see like from yesterday.
Yeah, the daytime, yeah.
Yeah.
74005.
It's not Tucson, it's another place. Yuma Proving Grounds. Oh, it'll be proving something.
So you got text, do you want me to try to get an image instead?
Yeah, I think you can when you go back. I think you can.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. SQT or something. Or they used to have like GIF SQTs. Yeah, that's great. So this is yesterday afternoon, right?
So this will go from the 11th.
Well, that's the 11th, we're going to change that.
Yeah, let's change this to 20/0Z.
Yeah.
This is an unwieldy site. And then do the same here. Let's do this too.
Same.
Yeah, same time. And then we gotta probably do it again. Yuma Proving Grounds. Yeah, Yuma. I was using this just last week and it's faster than this. What's going on? Maybe they've got overload. People are interested in the
I think
Southwest.
hitting enter in the station.
All right, let's just do theta.
Yeah, go ahead. Look at that, yeah, so we go all the way up to.
Theta's at, is it 994? and at 288-ish degrees Kelvin. It's well mixed, it's only 10 degrees different all the way up to 646, or 20 degrees different. So I guess it's not really that well mixed as we might have expected.
So that's a 12Z too.
It is?
That number, those numbers were 12Z for some reason. I don't know why it's.
Yeah, I don't know what's
Anyway,
going
I
on.
don't know.
Okay, it's just, oh yeah, it's not doing what we asked. Okay. Something wrong. Wrong date too. Okay, so anyway, that's a good thing to do. Go and find that, because you will have a really deep mixed layer. It might go all the way to 500 millivolts, which is the kind of thing we do see in June, July, and August.
Right.
Over in Phoenix. That's why they can't take off, because the air is just a uniform low density. I think that's all I have. Yeah, I don't want to show 850. I wanted to see 500
Oh, sorry.
millivolts. So we're all set.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, let's go to, just while it's fresh in my mind, I know I'll forget, go to Pivotal and we'll just do a model sounding. We get kind of close to that time period. And let's do it at, let's go ahead to the GFS, let's go to 12 hours. Go to the southwest and just pick location right about there, let's say. Yeah,
Goes to 200 millivolts.
yeah, for at least in this segment right here, up to 700 millivolts, really, 3,000 meter, 3,000 meter well mixed layer. You can see it's just perfectly parallel to the isotopes here, so that's pretty well mixed. And then there's another layer just above it, somewhat elevated, that's not quite well mixed, but that's pretty deep. Okay.
That's constant AE too, because the mixing ratio goes up the same line, all the way up to like 700 millivolts, which is some really extraordinary AE. But it's a dry AE.
Hey, who's gonna know this? Who's gonna know this? Let's click out of that, let's go to Kai. Always start with the meteorograms. Everyone wants the meteorograms.
Except up in Nurture, we would call it mediograms.
And that's just unfortunate. I think you already passed it, but go one more over, one more there. Click down, let's go down to, I don't trust the temperatures on this, certainly not the dew points, they're all gone. But you can see we're already below what the models, this model is forecasting, the WRF model is forecasting for today, but tomorrow is certainly going to be a much warmer day. But you also notice really the lack of any diurnal cycle in the temperatures once we get beyond tomorrow. And temperatures just trending downward. So again, one of these sort of rude awakenings with a cold front that's going to pass through our area, and the possibility of precipitation late tomorrow night into early Sunday morning. So early Sunday morning, maybe a little bit of precip as we go back to sort of more winter-like temperatures or late spring temperatures. Let's look at the time height section to get a really good sense of that. And in this time height section, you're going to see really the passage of that front and the formation tomorrow, at least, I wouldn't call it well mixed, but we do mix out a little bit late in the afternoon tomorrow with potential temperatures nearly constant with height before the passage of the front. But again, northerly flow today, becoming more northeasterly and easterly as pressures fall to our south. And then we get this warming up, strong southerly winds tomorrow, and we warm up pretty nicely. Maybe a little bit of some cloudiness tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And then we get this big surge in vertical motion, that's the light blue. Reds are relative humidity, so the column gets saturated. And the winds go from northerly, or north-northwesterly, to fairly strong northerly, and you can see the isotopes just popping out of the ground as the cold convection takes over and we begin to cool off. So if this forecast pans out, it looks like warmest day of the weekend is going to be tomorrow afternoon, and Sunday is going to be noticeably colder. The question is how cold. And I've looked at some comparisons with other model forecasts, and the timing on this is right. We're going to go next to the nested model maps at the surface, and we'll start at, say, 6 hours into this. And this shows over us just largely a northerly flow. Again, these temperatures are underestimates of what's actually happening. We know we're already close to 60 here in Madison and up in Green Bay. Probably that's not too bad, but here we're this is a little bit behind where we should be. If we go ahead, let's do a loop, and we can just stop it and step through it. Stop right there, and we'll go to, okay, this is 15 hours in the forecast, that's 10 o'clock tonight. And we'll just keep going forward. Light northerly winds, you can see the winds beginning to turn, veering out of the south by the time we get into early tomorrow morning. During mid-morning, midday tomorrow, nice brisk southwest wind, and we'll stop right there. This is well before the frontal passage. Southwest winds, and again, these temperatures are probably at least 5 degrees off, so maybe approaching, getting to the mid-60s tomorrow. I'm not yet confident. I know the GFS model output statistics give us a high tomorrow of 75 degrees. I don't know. I don't think that's likely. We can also look at Moss on the forecast. One of the, Pete, if we could bring up weather, the Moss for tomorrow. Not yet, but we'll look at that before we finish up.
We haven't had 70 yet this year.
I think we had.
Oh,
I
have
thought
we?
we did last, was it this past?
A few weeks ago.
This
Oh,
one.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We knew we got close.
Right. But you can see the lakes show up really nicely here in terms of temperatures, obviously. Here's the warm advection and this band of precip. You see the wind shift with that front that's just well to our northwest. And we step ahead to a couple clicks. Here comes the cold air sort of surging southward. Looks like the A front goes by us sometime tomorrow evening after 10 o'clock. You can see the nice wind shift, southerly winds here, northerly winds here. There's actually some frontogenesis along this boundary. It's kind of neat. And then this, coming off of Lake Superior and just north of Minneapolis, this band of precipitation that shows up. And there is, I would say it's a subtle wind shift. There's not much, wouldn't call this frontogenetic, but we're getting some, I don't know if it's lake enhanced precipitation toward north. Let's go ahead another 3 hours. And it seems to amplify a little bit. We actually get bands of precipitation. That does show up in some of the operational model forecast as well. But here's the cold advection, and with this, the clouds, precipitation that's expected. Some of this is snow well to the north. This is just rain, and rain for us if we were to get any. And one more step ahead till 12Z Sunday morning. By then, we're expecting to have a little bit of precipitation over us, and maybe a 1/10 to 2/10 heavy precipitation up by Green Bay. And this is still above freezing, so this is likely, it's melting precipitation at this point. And then we go ahead to the afternoon on Sunday, and most of the precipitation goes to our south, and we're just left with northerly flow and an unpleasant day. Let's leave it at that. And then 60 hours just to end it off, staying chilly. So looks like on Sunday we may not even get out of the 40s during the daytime. Early at night, Sunday morning at midnight, we may still be close to 50, but it's going to drop after that. We won't get that warm the rest of the day, I mentioned. Before we go to some larger maps from Pivotal, if we could go to weather program and look up the AVN loss for today. Or slash new AVN, sorry. All right, so this is take the numerical model output, statistically process it based on past verifications, and you can come up with a set of statistical based forecast products. It's the moss. As I always say, a forecaster on a roll gathers no moss. Anyway, it's just a good effort to remember. Anyway, getting up to 60 today. What is our current, if we cue this and just look at the current temperature, if it's in yet. Oh, flat METAR. Okay, 15, so 59 right now. And we're expected, if we scroll this back up so we can see it, getting only up to 60, and then 39 for tonight, 75 tomorrow. That looks really nice. And you can see sort of the decrease in temperatures for the remainder of the period, as well as the shift in winds from northwest to more northeasterly during the day, and kind of overcast much of the day on Sunday is forecast by the aviation model output.
It's a tough call, because it's not a mystery 75. It's not lurking between the 3 hours. It's
Right.
right there in one of them.
It's right there, but again, I guess we'll see how well we verify today, because we're only expecting to get to 60, it's 59 right now.
Weather service is going upper 60s tomorrow,
Yeah.
the official forecast.
I mean, among the things that one imagines the model and the model output statistics might not handle right is the delicate balance between the snow melt, the water that's still in the ground and all that. That's really tricky, and if you're gonna pin your hopes on getting it right, that's probably gonna be a bugaboo.
Right. And if we were to go down to, let's say, Rockford, RFD for the new event, yeah. That's even more.
Whoa, that's really confounding.
It is Rockford. Let's do a station to verify that RFD is, it is,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So, I'm not sure what to make of the output that we have here. Springfield, 79.
Wow. All of them are coming in at 21Z with their high temperature too.
Right.
Nothing's happening.
Chicago O'Hare, 67 for tomorrow. So that's kind of odd.
I
that
think
we're-
so too.
The 75 kind of stands out like a sore thumb.
That's probably why the weather service is backing away from that a little bit. That's a really good, I'd follow that reason. That's weird.
And then finally Green Bay, just to finish this off. So it's already under forecast temperature there, and then tomorrow, well, 52, that might actually verify, but then getting colder again.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with the snow. It seems like.
Okay. Let's quickly go to Pivotal, look at the larger scale maps. Surface map, and we'll just kind of tree. And let's go to just single comparisons for today. In a relatively quiet week, we'll go to 24 hours and then just step ahead in chunks of 12 hours. So this is tomorrow morning, again, that broad, I guess at the surface, the winds are going to be more southeasterly, southerly geostrophic wind, warm advection. There's some precip, again, up to the north along the north of Lake Superior. If we go ahead to tomorrow evening, 36 hours, okay, you can see this nice trough that extends across the state with a little mini cyclone, minimum right here, and let's go ahead and another 6 hours or 12 hours, just jump ahead to Sunday morning. So that passes by and we get the cold advection, so this dark clinic zone is draped right over us. And still pretty warm, well to our south over parts of southern Illinois, into Kentucky and Missouri, but for us, kind of a little bit of precip as well Sunday morning, just to our north. Go ahead to 60 hours of the forecast, the end of that period. Thicknesses continue to fall over us, and we're now at sort of neutral temperature advection or thickness advection at this point. But cool, dry, it's pleasant. A lot warmer weather, even with the sun still up at 7 p.m. on Sunday evening, it's going to be much cooler. And then Monday morning, 72 hours. Okay, sort of settling for a cool period. Much of the weather across the country is pretty quiet, with a lone exception just to the east of Lincoln, Nebraska, thunderstorms.
It's a lot there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just happens, yeah. 96 hours, we'll just quickly go ahead. I don't want to say any more because I'll say too much. So Tuesday, more advection begins to start again. That's great. Let's see if it can persist.
Oh, yeah.
Persist, but we also then get some showers and some light precipitation, but we stay at least mild, the fronts to our north. We may have a brief period, if we go back just to 132 hours on Wednesday after, Wednesday evening, yeah, we may have a nice, relatively warm, not 70s, but we'll be warm, a little warm for a brief period. And then this next front begins to charge through after this. It's a weather watch next week, back into the cool weather, but again, relatively quiet. And then, beyond that is spring break, which we'll see how it all evolves. One thing I wanted to mention this week with the snowfall and then the warmer temperatures coming in, that didn't happen, was the lack of significant fog.
Yes, I agree.
That's something that I was expecting a period when it was pretty foggy. A couple mornings ago, I think it was actually hazy in the morning, but that was about
Yeah,
it.
it wasn't hazy, it was Tuesday morning?
Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, it was, you're right.
But we haven't had sort of that grim day of just clouds and kind of dampness and fog.
The snow-eating fog.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm surprised by that too. I'm surprised by everything this week, to be honest with you.
But big thing is, enjoy tomorrow, it'll be nice, and then we get back to a slap of reality with much colder weather on Sunday. And then next week looks like it'll be fairly decent, largely dry. And Wednesday might be our warmest day, I guess, during the course of the week. That's it.
516.
Then if we just want to do this, I used to do this in the past. Let's go to the CFS. I'm not sure how many people are going to be here for Weather Watch next Friday, just before spring break. But if we go ahead to, the next Weather Watch is going to be 168.3. It's going to be 168, but we go a week beyond that. Gets us into 336 or so, and then 168 more. So Weather Watch when we come back after break, 2 weeks ahead. Yeah, that's good enough. Oh, maybe some snow. What I've done in the past, and maybe I'll do it if I can find the time to do it, is I'll collect all this forecast over the next 2 weeks and just see how the will this actually verify. We'll just take a screenshot of this and remember what it looks like and see what it actually is. But that's it for Weather Watch. Thank you, John. Thank you, Pete. And thanks for watching. One thing I'll add is, if you see something during the week that you're kind of interested in or curious about, gather the maps, bring them down, be interested in the conversation.
Especially if it's not getting into the video, what's the season. I have no expertise in that, so it's great that other people talk about that. Yeah. All right, very good. Thanks for the discussion. All right, thanks, Pete.
So